Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's episode of the Becoming CTO Secrets podcast. My name is Philipp Deutscher, and I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, Juha Ristolainen, the Chief Technology Officer at Upvest. Juha has over 25 years of experience in building and scaling digital products. He has been instrumental in driving technological innovation across various sectors, and at Upvest, he leads the development of their investment API, empowering financial institutions to seamlessly integrate investment products into their platforms. His mission is to bridge the gap between technology and business. Juha, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Philip. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. So you are the CTO at Upvest. What is Upvest doing, and how come that you are now their CTO?
Yeah, so at Upvest, we're on a mission to democratize access to investments. So basically, we want to enable 100 million new people to start saving up for the future via investing. So the way we do that is actually building a platform that can then cater to all these innovative players in the space like Revoluts and N26s and Lightyears and Scalable Capitals and whatever to provide easy access products to end users. So if we were to build just a single investment app, the user amount might be limited, but when we build a platform and can power dozens and dozens of these innovative startups, also bigger enterprise clients, we can actually achieve 100 million end users to start investing for the future. So that's what we're doing at Upvest.
Okay, how big is the company?
We're about 200 people right now, where we just raised more funding in our C series before Christmas, and we'll likely add another 100 people this year. Half of that is engineering and product, so we're about to go to 120 in engineering this year. So half the people are still building and scaling the product.
And how big was the funding round? Can you disclose some information about the ticket size and the investors?
I don't remember if we published the numbers there, but it was a decent sized round, and we had all the existing investors follow on, and then head of Sofia leading with Sapphire.
Okay, so mostly the already existing investors, they were increasing their investment. That's a good sign, actually.
Yeah, exactly. They're really believers in the mission, and we have a great product market fit, and we're just about to start really scaling.
Okay, very well. You said 200 people at the moment, and you would like to bring 100 more into the company. Where are they going to be located mostly?
Yeah, so we're a Berlin-based company, so even now probably more than half of us are based in Berlin, but we are a hybrid remote company, so we have people all over Europe. We try to keep it within 4 hours of Berlin time zone just for logistical reasons, but we also have some people further away. We've also recently acquired our FCA license in the UK and setting up the UK as the London office as a second headquarters. I think we have a remote than some other roles that need to be more office presence, but we also don't mandate office presence. It's you do your work where you feel that you can do it best. So we also have a small hub in Tallinn, just because of my background at TransferWise, now Wise, and we've hired a lot of ex-colleagues from there. So we had a small a dozen people hub in Tallinn.
So you're spending also the most of your time in Tallinn, or are you traveling to Berlin quite a lot?
Yes, so I relocated myself to Tallinn about a year ago for personal reasons. It's closer to my family, which is in Finland. But yes, every few weeks we all go to Berlin in the management team. And also we encourage teams to get together every month, regardless of your location. Teams can get together in Berlin or future London for a team day. We have this week in Berlin in the company calendar as well, so that we get more face time for people. So we do still value the face-to-face interactions, even though engineering and product work can largely be done remotely.
Okay, clear. Yeah, it makes total sense. But can you also help me a bit to understand, like, how is your company or your part of the organization structured? Like, how many teams are you leading? How many people are directly reporting to you? Maybe you can, I mean, every company is different, and especially in engineering, there are some patterns that some companies want to apply. I mean, I recall the Spotify engineering model, which was quite well known and used a couple of, how is the structure at Upvest?
Yeah, so it's actually quite similar to the way we organized at Wise. So we build around autonomous product engineering teams. So they're cross-functional. So there's a bunch of engineers with a tech lead and a product manager who own a domain, or usually we don't have enough engineers to have a team per domain, but usually a team owns 3 to 5 domains, and they have full sort of ownership. So you build it, you own it, you maintain it. So there's nobody else to fix it than you. We have about 15 teams around this. When we got started, we really started from literally 0 lines of code. So we did a lot of whiteboarding, and then we didn't really know everything about the area yet. So we had to make some educated guesses, and we set out a bunch of teams around the core domains. I started building and then learned over time. So in the beginning, we probably had a bit too wide of an organization, lots of smaller domains. And then last year, we streamlined that a bit. So now we organize into 2 tribes. We call them tribes. It's basically just a group of teams that work in the shared context. So we have a brokerage tribe and a custody tribe, and then a platform tribe, which is a supporting tribe. But brokerage is more like everything that happens in real time in the system and placing orders, all these kind of things. And then custody is everything that happens after the real time, all the reconciliations and reportings and all these kind of things. And obviously platform then owns and maintains infrastructure, provides a compute platform to product engineering teams to effectively focus on building business outcomes. And there's engineering enablement infrastructure, all these kind of things. And also data is part of platform still, but probably will spin out at some point into its own thing. Okay. So there's 3 tribes, and they're led by a director of engineering. Those people report directly to me. There's also a chief of staff for engineering, just because to help us facilitate our sort of quarterly OKR rituals and all these kind of things. And then the directors have the tech leads, which are the team leads, as their direct reports. And the tech lead is sort of a tech lead manager role at Upvest. So we don't have separate engineering managers, but the tech lead manager is also the line manager of the engineers in the team. So we try to keep it relatively flat and don't want to add layers just for the sake of it.
But if I understood you correctly, you also want to have the engineering teams be autonomous. So they're also cross-functional. So they decide what kind of expertise and different skill sets they need, and then they're responsible for getting this skill set.
Yes, but to be honest, I mean, we're building a platform which is provided by an API. So most engineers are backend engineers building microservices with Go, using Postgres and Kafka and the like. So we do have some analysts and people like that in some teams starting to be there, and there's only a few teams that are full stack. So as we've been live for a few years already, an operational investment firm, so our operations colleagues need tooling. So we build an internal web application that they do their work on, and now starting to also expand that back office functionality to clients. So there's a few full stack teams, so they need some front-end skills as well. But yes, they're in the position to figure out what kind of skills they need themselves.
Okay, very well. We will get back to this at a later stage of the conversation, but first of all, maybe you can tell us a bit about your personal journey and especially your evolution as a CTO. Did you have a defining moment that steered you toward the CTO path? And if so, how did it reshape your career?
No, I didn't have a single clear point where I said that this is what I want to do, but I consider myself lucky because my career is sort of a hobby turned into a career. So I'm a child of the 80s. born in 77, and I got my first computer at 1986. Ever since typing up some of these basic program listings from magazines back then into my Commodore 64 and getting a small game and then starting to tweak the numbers there and seeing things change on the screen, that was like magic to me. And I said that, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do with my life. So I always knew that this is the career I want. So I never had any problems figuring out what I need to study or what I want to do. So I think I'm lucky. I always enjoy building stuff and making stuff happen with technology. So.
But it's great to hear. So with 9 years old, you already knew what you want to do in your life.
Well, I knew that this is like magic. It seemed like magic. So I knew that I need to know and learn more. When I did that, it started to be clear that this is the future. And also now we are living in a really exciting times with this AI stuff happening. So, let's see where that takes us. But yeah, so I never had this one defining moment. But yeah, I spent the first part of my career as a developer. We used to call ourselves programmers, not developers or engineers back then. So
yes.
Did a lot of that kind of stuff and spent 10 years in a consultancy. So worked on a lot of different projects, on small and big projects and big and small clients, from Nokia's and Samsung's and Microsoft's to smaller ones, and you learned a lot in those areas. And then when the company grew, back then it wasn't as usual as nowadays that there's separate tracks for ICs and people lead. So when the company grew and you just needed people who had been around, take more responsibility, so you got pushed off to be a manager, and then sort of happened to me, and I was a bit sad about that, because just when you start to be really good at what you're doing, like a really good senior engineer, then you get to or have to learn a whole new job, which is being a manager. So that's sort of what happened to me, and that's actually why I want to always offer different paths for engineers to grow. And you're gonna even mix and match and try being a manager for a while, and then if you didn't like it, go back. So that's actually something we've done a few times at Upvest already. So people.
But you said, if I understood you correctly, you said like you felt being pushed to become a manager. Who was pushing you and why? I mean, when you say like becoming a very good engineer, and at some point someone is telling you now, yeah, you're now becoming a manager.
Yeah, maybe pushed is the wrong term. It was the needs of the company and the growth, basically. So you just had to start taking up more responsibility, and all of a sudden you're doing another job, and you don't have time to do the writing of software. It sort of crept up on you over a few years. I found out that I enjoy working with people a lot, and you get more leverage in an organization by leading an organization rather than just contributing.
How are you handling this now when, I mean, you're working with dozens or hundreds of engineers? Some of them might also be ambitious, or some of them are not, but you see some potential in becoming great leaders and great managers. How you are dealing with this? Are you suggesting them to do more and climb up the ladder, or do you need to sometimes to give them a little push into the right direction?
A really good topic usually in my one-to-ones as well, to see where people want to take their careers. And actually, engineering career ladders and companies, the opportunities, it's sort of a pyramid, that the higher you go, the less opportunities there are. But trying to figure out a way that you can support people's growth in a meaningful way, and creating plans when you show that you can do this job. We actually try to do promotion sort of as a lagging promotion in Upvest. So people usually take responsibility a bit ahead of time, and then they've sort of been doing the job of the next level already, and then it's easy to just make it official in a progress cycle once they've already shown that they can do the job. So it's happening quite naturally.
And based on your experience, do you think that people have the tendency to take over more responsibility? Is this an initial reaction, or do you need to convince them that this is the right thing for them to do?
Well, I mean, it obviously depends on your personality and different types, but when you're in a high growth company and we hire bar raisers and bring in people who are ambitious and want to succeed and see the huge opportunity we have, there are more of these kind of people who are naturally gravitate towards taking more responsibility. Of course, there are always more engineers, also engineers that just like to do their work and contribute, but then it's about finding out what makes them tick and what gives them the satisfaction at work. So not everybody can obviously always get promoted because, as I said, it's a pyramid. So not everybody out of the senior engineers can become a staff engineer. There's just not enough room in an organization for 50 staff engineers.
Are those people usually find the same personal sacrifices the most challenging as it was for you? Like this, okay, now you're good at becoming an engineer and suddenly you need to become something totally different and you need to learn how to lead, how to manage, how to do things that have nothing to do with engineering.
Yeah, I mean, and that's actually one of the things I've mentored and coached quite a lot of engineers in my time. And when I asked a lot of them, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they said CTO, and I said, actually, do you really? Because if you're really good at technology right now, and actually the thing that you are describing to me sounds more like a architect or somebody who's a senior IC who still is super hands-on in technology, and so yeah, CTO is really a business role, for example. So it's not about technology; it's about using technology to achieve business outcomes. Not everybody's ready for those sacrifices, and that's why actually having this flexibility that some people can try when they get promoted to be a tech lead manager for a while, having the open discussion that actually now I've done it for a year and I don't really enjoy it, that I'd like to go back to an IC, allowing those kind of lateral moves as well. It's important to keep.
Does this work well for them? I mean, I heard from so many people who tried becoming a manager or a leader, and then after a year or two, they realized, okay, they would like to go back. They felt like this way back is way harder than the way pivoting to a managing role.
Could be potentially, but at Upvest it actually worked well. I've had already a few cases in my engineering teams. In the early days when we had to grow a lot, we had a year where we added 50 engineers. I had to sort of ask a few people, senior engineers, promoted them to tech lead managers, that can you help us and take care of this domain. We were sort of out of the water, and then we had more room to hire. They said that actually this, I did it for the company and everything, but it's not what I really want to keep. Then just going back to the IC role, and they're still happy and contributing in the companies. Okay. At least here it's worked.
Very well. I also assume that your early career experiences influence the way you lead the tech teams today, right?
Yeah.
And to what extent? So what were those early career experiences that you made that were so significant for you or influential that you still see them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Finland originally, so the sort of Nordic culture is all about trust and transparency and autonomy, empowerment, and no bullshit really. So an environment, I spent 10 years in a consultancy where we were awarded a lot of awards like best place to work in Europe many years in a row because of the culture and the way people felt about the company and being a part of it. That really has impacted a lot of how I lead teams as well. So I'm much more of a sort of a servant leader. Like my job is to hire smart people, build the teams, put the structure in place, and show the direction, and then get out of the way. So basically, let the smart people do their work. I give them sort of the direction, and then maybe some boundary conditions that within these parameters you guys can figure it out. So that's really the basis of everything I do. So it's not top-down command and conquer style of leadership.
Yeah, but I also assume there is a downside to this approach, right? Not everyone naturally feels comfortable with this Nordic culture. Maybe even Southern European countries with a different cultural experience and mindset. Do you see this as well, or do you see that usually you get along with people from all across Europe, all across the world? Or do we have some people or some cultures or some mindsets have more problem than others in getting along with the Nordic culture?
Yeah, and this is a model that requires a certain critical mass of people who feel the same and people who are stepping up to the plate. Some engineers are the type that they just want to be told what to do and show clear instructions. So if you were in an organization like that, the style wouldn't work. But the way I built the engineering organization really from scratch. And now I've hired people who are a fit to this, and I've seen that work at places like Wise. We were like 70, 90 engineering teams already working in this model, and it was working really well. I mean, ultimately, this is not rocket science. We're just building microservices and providing APIs. So it's ultimately all about people and people coming together to achieve their objectives. So yeah, it requires a certain mindset from engineers.
Are you good in telling stories to your fellow engineers? I mean, especially, I assume like when you're a CTO, you have war stories to tell, like critical situations in the past, significant setbacks, failures, and so on. It's like, do you have like can you share some such a failure that taught you a critical lesson in your journey?
Let me see if I can think about it. But yes, storytelling is part of the job, and tell the story is actually one of our core values, making it easy for others. And especially in the early days when I was hiring personally most of the engineers as well, so really telling the story of why should you join Upvest and what are we doing and what is the opportunity and the way we want to build the company. I really enjoyed those kind of things. Nowadays, I don't have time or the opportunities to do that so much. But yes, with my direct reports group, we do a quarterly offsite as well, and usually dinner and drinks, and we share a lot of war stories around that. I don't know if I can remember any critical mistakes right now, but I mean, I've been a part of a failed startup in the past in the UK. Well, it didn't fail for technology or product, but we scrambled and we hired super fast. I ramped up a team of 15 engineers from zero, and at all the same time delivering the MVP in 9 months. So that was a breakneck speed, which in hindsight probably burned out the whole team. So now I'm much more of a sustainable pace guy. Like it doesn't matter if you hire great people and then you burn them out. You have to find this sustainable pace of delivery.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And I mean, and for you, how do you keep your passion for technology with the broader responsibilities of being a CTO? I heard from a lot of other CTOs, they feel it's quite difficult.
Well, I don't find it difficult at all because, like I said, it's my passion, like technology empowering the world and making life better for everybody. So I always follow like, and now that I've been an expat in Germany and now in Estonia, where I don't speak the language so well, you don't watch TV at all. So I just watch a lot of conference talks all the time on YouTube and like soak up influences. And now it's a super exciting time with the breakneck speed of AI moving forward and this agentic AI and MCP servers, all these kind of things. So I always try to, because I haven't had a chance to really write code for a living for a long time, even though when we started this product, I wrote some of the early instrumentation stuff myself. But I do write code at home and dabble and experiment with a lot. Now with the AI tooling, it's 10 times more productive. You can validate things so much faster and get things done to at least some level. So it doesn't remove the need for thinking, but it allows you to think and experiment so much faster.
What's your perspective on AI tools, specifically like Copilot and Cursor, which are on a mission to boost engineering productivity, efficiency, however you're calling it? How do you see this in general? Who is benefiting from this? Is it also the junior engineer, or is it mostly like the super senior who is becoming like a rock star now?
I think juniors can benefit a lot from it. I'm just worried that if it impacts their actual learning. So if it's doing everything for you and you don't get the learnings that you get normally when you grow from a junior to a mid to a senior, and then if you're now a senior already and getting access to these tools, they're just like a way better hammer. So you still do the job that you were hired to do, but you can eliminate a lot of the toil out of it. So testing and all these kind of things, you get a lot of stuff done. So to me, it's a better tool. It gives you productivity boost, but it doesn't eliminate the need for engineers or thinking.
And are you using them by yourself? I mean, Cursor and Copilot?
Yes. So Copilot, we're a regulated financial services company, so security and all these kind of things, and especially data sovereignty is quite a big thing for us. So we had to go through vendor due diligence to allow these kind of tools inside the company. But yeah, in my personal life, I follow all these kind of things. There's so many incredible tools, Lovable, Bolt, Cursor. Claude is also really good that I use. I pay for by myself. So yeah, and there's every week there's a new one. So it's now it's actually a bit like the JavaScript framework years when every week there was a new framework. So no,
True. I mean, I also heard that Cursor was raising quite a big investment round recently. I'm just asking myself, is like, are they going to win, or will it be those like more general LLMs and those tools like Claude, like ChatGPT? Will they be in a better position mid to long term than a more niche product like Cursor? Or is there room for all of them to survive and to grow and to scale?
no, I think it's following the hype cycle, and now there's this proliferation of these startups. I would bet in a few years, 1 out of 10 is still viable, and there will be a lot of these that struggle to find the actual long-term paying customer base. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting. That it's always the same with any new technology. I spent a lot of time in blockchain and in the past as well. They had a hammer and they saw nails everywhere, so I wanted to use blockchain for everything. So now in the AI tooling space, again, every week there's a new one, and probably not everyone can find the product market fit, and ultimately Claudes and these more general ones might become good enough for general use cases, but then also these more niche and focused models for particular use cases might start to crop up and prevail in certain functions way better. For example, now spam detection, like Apple Intelligence shows a phishing email attack as a high priority email in my inbox. So it's not so great at categorizing yet. Probably your more traditional or focused spam categorization models could do it a better job than a general model.
But speaking briefly about blockchain, I mean, as a financial company, is this something relevant? I mean, the financial aspects of blockchain and decentralized finance, for example, is this something interesting for Upvest in general, or not at all?
We actually were a blockchain company in the beginning. Our first product was tokenized asset custody. So basically, Germany started to require a crypto custody bank license for companies in this space to legally operate in Germany, and we were one of the first companies to get the license. So that was the first product. But then we decided to pivot and away from that and build for this way bigger opportunity. I mean, cryptocurrencies obviously as an asset class is a part of an investment API, but there's a lot of things happening in blockchain. I think we're past the early hype that was from Ethereum's launch 2015 to 2020. Lots of projects that went away, but in the background, all these big players, Visas and Mastercards, are testing around, like using stable coins for reconciliation between parties and all these kind of things. So actually usable use cases and it basically shared big slow database that everybody can read. There are use cases for that. Yes, it is going to be relevant for financial services industry going forward, and for us, not right now. I mean, other than offering cryptocurrencies as an asset class via the API at some point.
And what's your general stance on crypto or blockchain as an investment vehicle or asset class or whatever? How do you see the industry?
I mean, my personal opinion. So I'm a crypto OG. So I've been putting in money every month for 7 years, and I'm still keeping putting in money there. So I think long term it's going to, and especially now that last year in the US SEC allowed finally the Bitcoin ETFs, and now institutional money is coming to Bitcoin where there's a finite supply on it. There's a bit of FOMO, like all the pension investment funds and all these kind of companies. They want to have some exposure to it in their allocations. So I think it's just going to cause the prices to go up. But this is my personal opinion, and I'm a crypto guy from 2016 onward.
And when you say crypto guy, you mean mostly Bitcoin, or you mean also altcoins like Ethereum, Solana?
Well, I do have most of my allocation is in Bitcoin, but yes, I do have quite a long list of shitcoins. But the thing that got me started in like Bitcoin wasn't to me so interesting in the early days. I kept following it, but when Ethereum launched, and then it was sort of this world computer where you could run smart contracts and actually do a lot of things. That a sort of revelation to me that okay, there is something here, and this is probably going to be big in the future.
Yeah, same for me when I bought Ethereum in 2017. So that was for the same reason.
Although now I sort of feel that Ethereum lost from a few years ago, and there are like Solana, for example, taking some of the limelight. So, but yeah, it's I don't have time to follow that space as intently as earlier when I was. So I just every month put more into Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Interestingly, you also said that Bitcoin was not that interesting for you because I see more and more critiques. Bitcoin has no usage. Bitcoin's value is only defined by the fact that people hope that there is someone else later on who buys it for double or triple the price. So why would people need to buy Bitcoin?
What I meant
no investment advice of
yeah,
course.
It's a personal opinion. So what I meant by not interesting was that it wasn't it was an asset. So Ethereum was actually a programmable world computer. So you could do things with it. It was interesting from a software developer's point of view. That's what I meant. So yes, obviously Bitcoin as an asset class, and it's established itself already like as this sort of digital gold or store of value or what. When it's being exposed via regular securities like ETFs, ETPs, there's this FOMO going around. Like everybody wants an allocation in their portfolio. So and then if there's 21 million, you have to start carving out smaller and smaller pieces, which means that the price will go up. What value does a euro or a dollar have? So, but I meant that from a software guy's perspective, Bitcoin wasn't interesting. Ethereum was interesting.
True, yes. And I mean, what will be the next FOMO narrative out there? Will it be new ETFs for new altcoins? Will it be, I don't know, AI tokens really taking off? Because what we have not seen in this cycle is any, I mean, many altcoins or shitcoins or however you're calling them have not seen like a new all-time high for many years.
Yeah. I'm not so much in the world that I want to speculate around that. And there's always the new shiny thing, like NFTs came and went, and nobody talks about them anymore. I just focus more about, like I worked in some corporate innovation units around blockchain usages for actual industrial use cases in factories and supply chain, kind of things. So I was much more interested in the technology always than the asset class. Only like in the last 7 years, like Bitcoin as an asset is interesting, but the technology was always the more interesting bit to me. So I don't know what's next, and I wouldn't care to speculate.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, briefly getting back to like the technical identity of yours. Have you ever felt that like your technical identity conflict with your leadership role, and how did you address the tension?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's so hard to reconcile. Like once you grow into a leadership role in an engineering organization and you come to the CTO, it's a business role. Like we want to do the XYZ as a company, and we have to figure out how. And nowadays, a lot of the times it's by utilizing technology. So yes, of course, there are always ideal cases or solutions you would want to apply, but when it doesn't make any sense for the business, it's usually not a hard decision to make. So you always prioritize like what is the short-term and ultimately also the long-term benefit for the company. So then you do all your experimenting and using of the shiny new tools in your other projects outside of work.
Okay. Do you see yourself very often in situations where you're biased because of very long ago experiences, and then suddenly you need to turn your opinion back?
Yeah, I mean, of course, when it comes to architecture, when we started the high-level architecture and the way we built things, I had to define and set out while I was hiring the teams. And it's always a set of opinions that this is our opinion how we want to build things. Like we were building an event-driven architecture, so events as a first-class citizen, really utilizing Kafka and try to avoid synchronous calls and all these kind of things. Instilling those in principles and then making sure teams know. So after setting the initial high-level architecture and direction and what kind of things we value, the core engineering principles, not so much. Even now, we had a technical project about what do we do when we start to cater to enterprise clients and we need to upgrade our API gateway. We're using open source tool. I had a lot of opinions on that because I've been in the space and talked to all the vendors and at every conference for the last 3-4 years. So I had my personal opinions, and then there was a hook, one killer feature by one vendor that got me really interested in it. But ultimately, you have to empower and enable your team. So setting out a proof of concept research project led by one of my principals and giving them the requirements and also on actually what makes sense for the company. And we didn't end up actually, he gave me a recommendation which was against the thing that I thought that I wanted. But ultimately, they made a good case and I decided against what my initial feeling was. So it's about what makes sense for the business.
Yeah, and in your opinion, which is more crucial? So staying sharp on emerging technologies or cultivating a more strong leadership skill and transferring this into the company?
I think leadership skills are crucial the higher up you go. So I don't know if you've read Patrick Lencioni, but he talks about this first team principle. So basically, my team is the executive management team and those peers, and engineering is my second team. So my job is to actually come together with my team and make sure that we can run the business. So leadership skills and business acumen and all these kind of things are much more important than knowing what's the latest trend. Obviously, good CTOs keep up with what's happening in the industry and know what kind of tools can drive outcomes, but it's way less important than actually knowing the business, how to drive a business, how to drive outcomes and lead people.
Okay, and speaking about teams, what from your perspective are the most effective strategy that you have used to scale tech teams without compromise? I mean, in general, and then also without compromising quality or outcome.
Yeah. So in the early days when we started to build out the platform, we had a timeline of about 2 years. It took roughly 2 years from starting from zero to go live. So we had to hire a lot of engineers. And back then, one of the strategies I used is I found a few good partners that work with me. So we brought in the beginning quite a lot. 30-40% of my engineers in the early days were partner engineers from vendors. And then over time, they were always like any other team members inside our teams. And then over time, we had an agreement from the day beginning that we will backfill them over time. And I think the last engineer from the first company left after 4 years or something like that. So that was really a tool that helped me ramp up faster than if we were just hiring in-house engineers. And it proved quite useful to us. We are still, even now in this phase when we have to add another 50 engineers this year, we are working with some of our partners to bring in maybe 1 in 5 engineers from partners, just to make sure that we get engineers in faster.
And when you speak about partners, you mean like nearshoring companies?
Yeah, so we work, for example, with a company called Ventian, and they're a big sponsor of the CTO of Upvest conference as well, where I was just in London. So I've had a relationship with them for 5 years now. They're a big global player. They have 3,000-4,000 engineers across the world. And so we've had a bunch of people, 12-15 people from them in Eastern Europe. We work more with like a staff augmentation mode, hired and interviewed like any other engineer. They join the engineering team. They're just external, and then there's a end date in sight already that once we hire an in-house person at some point, then they can rotate back and go to their next project.
And how do you ensure, you personally, that new hires not only bring like the technical expertise and excellence, but also align with your company's culture? Are you asking them specific questions, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so in the early days, probably the first 50, 60, 70 engineers I involved in the process. So I had the final interview always, which was called the back then culture fit, but I think that's the wrong term. I like to have culture add more, like everybody brings something to the company and the culture. So I focused really on the mindset, and especially in an early stage startup, the mindset is everything. So whatever your job spec says, if there's a job to be done and nobody else is doing it, somebody has to pick it up. So it's about flexibility and the product mindset, being in the problem space long enough first before jumping into solution space. And so I talked about a lot of those kinds. When the hiring has gone to my directs and their team leads, making sure we write out the hiring principles and what do we value in engineers. So we really focus on the product mindset and engineering skills. Both are equally important. And then there's also the cultural aspect that we see them adding to the company culture. Like, to me, if you just hire for culture fit, you risk ending up in a monoculture that everybody's got from the same mold, and that's actually bad for the outcomes. Diversity of thought is important. You have people who think differently and challenge each other and ultimately end up in better outcomes. And to me, that's actually the biggest, most important thing about this diversity, equity, inclusion piece. It's not about the superficial things. It's about bringing diversity of thought into the company.
And I like the fact that you were saying about you should not focus on cultural fit, but on cultural add, because everyone brings something new and unique and different to the table, and that might also enrich the company culture. But what specifically do you consider the most essential elements for fostering such a strong organizational culture? How do you keep this? So what are the elements that are the most important?
Yeah, so again, like I said, everybody brings something new to the culture when they join. So culture will change over time, and it's nothing to be afraid of, as long as it's anchored in the values and the things that you value as a company. So like I said, we have 4 core values that are on the outcome and tell the story and all these kind of things. So as long as you can align with our values, then it should be fine. Like you've heard about brilliant jerks and these kind of things. Like, no, I wouldn't hire a brilliant jerk if they can't work with the team and align with the values we have, like make it easy for others. That's the basis of it. But company culture will evolve over time, and everybody will contribute their part.
And how do you address hassle or communication breakdowns, especially in critical high pressure situations while you're growing fast or something critical is going on, especially during periods of this rapid growth?
I mean, we have quite an open communication culture anyway. So teams and people talk to people from other parts of their organization and departments whenever they need for their work. So that happens quite well normally anyway. But then there are times when there's a critical project or a response to something. For example, we had a few more incidents than usual in January, for example, and we had this incident task force that we set up. So bringing all the right people around the table and really looking at where we are and setting up an action plan. So have to cut going up the flagpole and then coming down the flagpole somewhere else. So you should put people in direct communication that need to be in direct communication.
And those incidents were a consequence of high growth situations, or?
Well, I mean, we've been building for 4 years, and obviously we've had to take some conscious compromises on certain things, and we made some design decisions with the information we had 2 years ago, for example, and we had a few cases where we had some limits being reached now that we are getting much more volume and traffic on the platform, and those started to cause incidents, and we just had to start addressing those a bit more vigorously. But the good thing about these kind of distributed systems is that they are quite elastic, so it doesn't really break. It starts to slow down, and then you have time to react. So, but yes, you have to. Those are actually the interesting decisions you have to take as leaders sometimes. That okay, you can't always build the ideal solution, but to be able to bring this to clients that need it in the next few quarters, we have to first do it in this MVP style. Then we have to take note of what we need to come back and change a few quarters later. So those kind of things are now part of the normal work. It's not fully 100% building new stuff anymore. It's also about keeping the lights on and addressing some of those earlier design decisions.
And you mentioned the core values of the company, but you only named 2 of them. What are the others?
So we have 4 core values. Number 1 is learn and grow. Obviously, when we started, we didn't know too much about the industry. We had to learn as we were building. Team first is the second one. Number 3 is own the outcome. We don't believe in micromanagement, and people need to step up and own their outcome, and then tell the story. So those 4 core values have been there for a few years now already. They weren't there from the beginning, but at some point we had to stop and start to think about what do we actually value as we grow the company, and those 4 have served us quite well. But there are sub points to each one of them, and especially the team first. We have a one that says make it easy for others. So that's actually quite a core sub value that we have. Something and throwing it across over the fence to the other department and expect them to know what to do, but make it easy for them.
Yeah, you said something very interesting and very inspiring, because you said the culture changes over time, and that's okay as long as it's in line with the company values.
Yeah.
And yes, while it sounds so obvious, I think that many people do not take care about it. That it's okay for the company culture to change, as long as it is still part of or it can still be just another variation of the values and the DNA of the company.
Yeah, exactly.
Very well. How critical is transparency to you, especially in maintaining trust within your teams, in communication? How do you implement transparency in your way of leadership, and how you deal with your teams and your direct leads?
Yeah. So personally, to me, it's super important. Obviously, as a member of the executive management, there are things that you can't always tell people about certain things. When we're going up the enterprise ladder, getting bigger and bigger clients, quite delicate topics, so we can't always talk about them openly. So we use code names for the customers to prevent leaks and all these kind of things, because it could be disastrous for the client relationship if things leak out ahead of time. So some things, you can't share really to all of your team members, but my direct reports, they have a really unfiltered access to me and the way I think, and I delegate a lot to them, and actually I try to get them to come up with a solution and decision without me needing to tell them that. So that's sort of my style. So they get an update from me from what we discuss in the executive management, and to me it's the basis of the relationship. It wouldn't work any other way.
Yeah, to me as well. But some people might say there is also a downside of being too transparent. Did you ever face a situation where you retrospectively would say, okay, maybe it would have been better if I would not have shared this information, or if I would have to be more sensitive in this?
Yeah, I think as long as you are clear on the expectations, I've gone through the learning with my directs, as in the earlier parts, I forgot to tell that, okay, well, this is information just for this group, so please don't pass it on. And then there were things that were discussed outside the group as well. Sometimes in the absence of information, rumors and gossip start to... I always tell people that if you hear something that seems weird or you're not sure of, just ping me on Slack direct, give you the straight answer or whatever I can to avoid any misinterpretations. But yeah, that's a learning I had early on, this, that you have to be specific, because normally in my weekly with my directs, we discuss everything quite openly, and sometimes I have to remember to say that, okay, well, this information is now just for this group, because it might be something about an upcoming business decision or something else that isn't ready yet for company-wide consumption, but it's important that they know. So
and the direct reports you are having, so those are mostly people you helped growing into this position, or were it mostly people that you hired and they were joining the company for, especially for this role?
It's both. So when I went from 5 to 50 engineers, that's when we started the tribe structure. And so I hired my heads of engineering, but some of them actually have grown from a tech lead manager to a head of and now director. So it's a mixture of both.
Okay. And do they need to have some critical skills that you believe would help them to become better leaders? So how do you select someone climbing up the ladder and becoming a director at some point?
Well, I mean, my group is also quite eclectic, so everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, and working on their growth plans is interesting and rewarding. So, but I think it's ultimately about owning the outcome, delivering results, and making sure that you bring the people along. Like, I think as a leader, it's super important always to set the context on. Like, sometimes even if you have to decide on something and not everybody always agrees, so you have to be able to disagree and commit. But as long as you give the why and the context why this decision was made this way, I think you can bring people along. So it's about realizing that, okay, we're here to drive business outcomes. So facilitating for that and forgetting your ego and any of your personal preferences on technologies or solutions. I think that's quite key. Also, communication skills are super critical. Like,
Yes.
most IT projects that fail, they don't fail on technology, they fail on people and communication.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, but you also you were talking a bit about your direct reports. So this group of people, is this like a very diverse group of people, or is it more homogeneous and more aligned to your way of thinking? How do you set this up? I mean, I'm also asking because in the last episode, I was talking to the former CTO of TeamViewer, Mike Eisele. He was my former boss. I was part of his management team many years ago. And he also came up with the idea and said, like, he liked the fact that his management team was very diverse in their approaches and their way of thinking, which I found very difficult at that time because it felt like we were never able to come to a conclusion because we were so diverse and had so many different opinions. So long story, but the thing is, like, how are you handling it? Is it like more
Yeah.
diverse or more homogeneous?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from a demographic perspective, I think it's quite homogeneous. So I mean, we are in a intersection of financial services and technology. So it is not that diverse from a demographics point of view. But I think from a diversity of thought point of view, we have people who think differently. Some are more long-term thinkers. Some are more pragmatic and tactical in their orientation. Some are more theoretical. Some have really strong opinions. So there's been quite a lot of discussions, sometimes heated discussions. Ultimately, if they can't come to a conclusion, then you are there to be the tiebreaker and remind them on what is important. But yeah, I think it's important. Actually, a good topic for my one-to-ones with them is that how do they see that sparks flying sometimes around topics, not being able to convince people of your argument over another argument. But I think it's always good that we get varied points of view across before then coming to a solution and decision.
And when you apply like practical leadership in your daily work, when you talk to your direct reports, when you talk to engineering teams, do you also realize that there are some myths about leadership in general? I mean, and if so, what kind of myths do you see, like things that people believe which are part of leadership and later on in practice they turn out to be totally different?
Yeah, I don't know about myths, but to me, good leadership is boring leadership. Like, you're well prepared for things in advance, and you don't always have to be firefighting. Like, it's this myth about a great leader who comes in and saves the day because of a disaster, but you could have probably avoided the disaster by planning ahead a bit better and all these kind of things. So this firefighter who starts the fire gets all the credit. So that's a bit of a sort of a bias in the industry, that people who make a lot of noise and tend to be seen as getting things done much more than actually when things are going smoothly and running smoothly, that's actually a sign of good leadership and you having been prepared. So I think that's one of my sort of things. I don't know if it's a myth, but I subscribe to this boring leadership.
Okay. And do you have some personal apprentices, so to say? So people you feel like they could be very good leaders, they could be high potentials, and you would like to support them on their path for becoming, I don't know, director, tech lead, whatever. Yeah, do you have such people that you, so proteges, so to say, people that you help more than others?
Not so much inside the company. Obviously, I want to grow all of my people, and they are all even the ones that I hired at head of. They are all of them promoted to directors already. Some of them have gone up 2 levels all the way to director. So growing people and that's really a lifeline of a company, is growing your people, and it's always way less risky to promote from within than hire an external leader. So I like to do it that way. But there are obviously certain people in the company who, if you see that they are not the most outspoken or championing themselves, I try to always remember to hold out for the little guy as well. Somebody who doesn't make noise, but is a good contributor. So not
True.
to forget about them. I used to do more mentoring. I was early parts of my career. I was mentoring foreign exchange students, trying to integrate the Finnish work life as well, and those were actually always super rewarding jobs. But I haven't had a mentee for a while now.
Okay, and is there a way for you how to measure the success of leadership initiatives? I mean, or you mentoring someone, how do you measure the success? If is this even possible?
I measure success on how my directs achieve outcomes, and we achieve our business outcomes. But we do have an L&D manager in the company. We have learning and development paths that engineers can take part in, and also trying to identify future leaders and all these kind of things. So I think it is critical to grow our people. And I mean, we talk about talent density and bringing in bar raisers, but also not forgetting about the people you've already brought in.
Did you ever had a situation where someone was knocking at your door and telling you, well, Juha, I also want to become a CTO. Can you tell me how?
Not so much lately, but yeah, earlier in my career, when I was mentoring people at that consultancy, I had one developer who said that, okay, when I grow up, I want to be like you. But then I was still like just transitioning from a senior IC, really good at what I'm doing, to leading people. But again, that was where most people in that part of their career, they have some false assumptions on what the CTO role is. I think the best thing you can do to them is out what the role is actually about. And if you are really like a technologist and passionate about doing things with technology, CTO role might not be the right one for you. It's a business role.
And what false assumptions did you see?
Well, most of the senior engineers or engineers in their career, where they say that, okay, I want to be a CTO, what they're thinking about is basically like this alpha geek who designs the whole architecture and calls all the shots on technology and everything. No, that would be a really bad CTO. Like, it's about empowering and enabling your teams and setting objectives and guardrails for them.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's you said it, and I also saying this very often. Like, CTO is a business function, right? So of course, if you're having a tech background, that might help. And I would also say the best CTOs definitely have a tech background and started as engineers. But there are also CTOs out there who never coded by themselves, and some of them are also good CTOs. So it's not like you can only become a CTO when you were like a brilliant engineer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps in the way where, especially if you're building an organization from scratch, when they know that you've done the job, and it's easier for you to gain their trust because they know that you have experience and you've gone through what they are going through. But it's not a absolute must-have, and you can be an effective CTO without having that background. Obviously, then you have to figure out your ways of how to talk with engineers on their level as well.
And is there a counterintuitive piece of advice you would give someone aspiring to become a CTO? Something they would not expect?
No, like I said, I don't think it's counterintuitive, but yeah, I think the higher up you go, you have to really have business skills and people skills. That's the more important part than the technology skills.
And in general, what personal qualities differentiates like a great CTO from a merely good one?
You have to know your stuff, but I think having the strategic eye out, but also realizing the practicalities on the ground. So you have to be able to know what kind of compromises to take and what brings you the most value now and then doesn't sink you in 5 years as well. So you have to always walk that tightrope between long-term and short-term delivering of value. So it doesn't make sense if you always keep taking the short-term decision and then in 5 years' time you have to scrap everything you've done and start over again. So I think having that long-term vision and being able to effectively communicate that to your stakeholders and peers, it's super important.
True. And are there any other common pitfalls? So those emerging tech leaders should be wary of when transitioning from the individual role to executive?
Yeah, I think in general, this is a good rule for leaders, this over-communicate, because especially in a growing organization, there's always new people joining, so they haven't heard you say the things that you've said to other people many times. And even if it's things you think that it's too much, and I'm preaching always over-communicate, that's one of the keys, and especially over-communicate to your stakeholders and make sure they know where things are going and what's happening and all these kind of things.
Yeah, true. I mean, as you said before, as a CTO, you need to be boring, right? And over communicating the same stuff again and again. So that it might be boring for some people, but it's still essential. So as you said, new people are joining the company all the time and they never heard what you told like 6 months ago.
Yeah, exactly.
If you could go back in time, what one piece of advice would you give your younger self before becoming a CTO? Or would you say, do everything as you did, perfect?
Yeah, I think usually when you're younger, people tend to be a bit more cocky. I know I was like just out of uni, you think you know everything. And then I was also quite opinionated and things like that. So, and also like utilize your strengths and also use the tools available to you. So for example, coaching is a super helpful tool. So if you have access to a coach or somebody to spar with, those are super useful tools when you're going up your leadership journey. So we've had an executive coach, for example, facilitating our management team for a while, not anymore, but last year. Those prove really useful. So use the tools and like don't think that you know everything yourself.
Very well. And last question for today: do you have like a saying or like a motivational quote which is very important to you because it defines who you are? It reminds yourself about what's important. Anything in your life that is defining the way you are?
Yeah, again, I think it comes back to my Nordic background and the values there. So it's well, probably no bullshit. Like I don't tolerate bullshit. And actually, when I took my first job in the UK outside of the Finnish consultancy, it was, thank God I was in a leadership role, so I could get away with it. But like cutting through the talking around in circles proved to be quite effective and actually served me really well. Faking and doing things, that's like I'm allergic to that kind of stuff. So like no bullshit is served me well for the whole of my career.
Yeah, and I assume all your employees know that, right? So whenever they are talking to you, no bullshit.
Yeah. We have this practice where we write this manager read me, so people who join the company can read about what makes me tick and how to interact with me. So it's hopefully useful for people who work with me.
It's like a manual, right? A manual for human interaction with the CTO.
Yes.
Very well. I like that. Juha, It was great talking to you. Thanks for the great conversation we had today. Thanks for following my invitation. Thanks, and talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. And it was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.